Minister, can I welcome the statement you've made today, and can I welcome the decision of the Welsh Government to actually produce an action plan, because it is critical. I do note that it refers quite a few times to Port Talbot, as you fully understand. The implications for Port Talbot are huge. We have the motorway going through that. We have steelworks and other industries within there. We have a combination of everything your plan says in reality. And therefore, I've got a few questions, and I'll try and keep my two questions, because I know the Deputy President Officer would focus on questions at this point. On your issues about planning policy Wales, you talked earlier in response to that, it is important that we again get support on that, because it has to address how the LDPs will look at this question of air quality and air quality management, particularly in planning proposals which will include either incinerators or some form of aspect which will increase air pollution in that area, whether it be in a residential area or industrial area. And so, therefore, will you be looking at the local authorities and asking them to review their LDPs to ensure that they're up to date to meet this plan? Regarding motorways, as you highlighted, the section of the M4 turns to 41 to 42 in my area is one of the roads that had to limit itself to 50 miles per hour. But again, will you assure me or give me give me reassurances that you're talking to the Minister to look at how you address that, Matt, because putting them off the M4 onto the local roads is going to make air quality in the areas worse for the residents of those local roads, particularly children, as they're going to be walking along those roads to their schools. And therefore, it's not a solution. We have to find alternative solutions rather than simply either closing junctions or taking traffic off the M4 and putting them on local roads. Andrew Davis highlighted the issue about transport, public transport, and again, that's crucial. The Minister for Economy and Transport is going to be bringing forward a public transport bill. Can you ask him to ensure that it meets this plan? Because there are many areas where people don't have cars, and the bus is the only option. And if we're going to make sure they can actually use the bus, they have to have a bus to use. Therefore, that bill must ensure that it puts an onus upon areas which have no other alternative to cars other than the bus, and to ensure those buses are available. I do welcome the review of the action plan for Port Talbot. It is time we had that. But can you also ensure it looks at nuisance dust as well as the PM10, PM2.5s and nitrogen dioxide? Because whilst people might think that's not necessarily a health in one aspect, it's the well-being of people as well we need to address, and it does impact upon my constituents heavily in that area. I welcome the indoor pollution reference in the statement, and we need to publicise that more, because I was up the attic only last week getting Christmas decorations down. Yeah. And when you look at the plan and what actually areas affects indoor properties, you start to realise actually how we can all be affected by something simple. But people might not know that. I was unaware of some of the points in that plan. Behavioural change is important, but we need alternatives if you want behavioural change. And that's the problem. Sometimes we do not have those alternatives available for behavioural change to occur. And I think I'll end there.
Thank you, Diaries, for those points. I'll just refer to Port Talbot and Tata Steel, and obviously the member never misses an opportunity to speak to me about air quality in Port Talbot. And as you know, the short-term action plan was put in place to specifically prevent exceedances to legal limits and safeguard residents' health. And we've never exceeded European legal limits for particulate matter in Port Talbot. I think it's very important to make that point. However, like many of these things, it's about perception. And I know that you've had concerns that your constituents have had a lot of dust. And I think Di Lloyd made a very important point before, that it's not the stuff, it's the stuff that we can't see that causes the most problems, not that we can see. But however, the perception is that that is really damaging. I think you're right about the 50-mile-per-hour zone. You don't want to get perverse results. And as the transport strategy comes forward, I think the Minister is bringing that forward next week, I think. We can certainly ensure that this plan fits into that strategy. I think it's very important that that is the case. And also the public transport bill, because you're right, we can't expect behavioural change if that form of travel is not there for that person. And I mentioned in an earlier answer to Andrew Davis about the rural areas of Wales, that if you haven't got the public transport infrastructure in place, then people are not going to make that modal shift from the car. There's also the economic impact, I think, to consider around public transport, because if people look at the cost and it's so much cheaper to go in the car, again, that will definitely affect people. And also, if you're sitting on a bus and you're sitting in a bus behind 200 cars, you're going to think it's not worth it. However, if there's a bus lane and you're able to go in the bus lane and be much quicker, I think it's just simple things, because as I said, I think Wales has really led the way on behavioural change in relation to recycling and organ donation, so I think we can do it here as well. Oh, sorry, you asked me about planning as well, and I mentioned that Planning Policy Wales had been changed, but it is important that local authorities look at this clean air plan going forward to ensure that it fits in.
Okay. We have